Correct. And the client, regardless if a client has been diagnosed with any form of cognitive impairment, does not mean they do not understand certain aspects. It does not mean that they no longer have the right to be able to make decisions in relation to their financial, their personal or their lifestyle goals. Dismissing a person's individual goals and objectives is not the right thing to do just because there may be a cognitive impairment or a diagnosis. That does not mean the person does not have understanding as to how to communicate what they want. It might become difficult for them to communicate effectively. That doesn't mean their choices aren't valid anymore.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting, and obviously you've seen the good and the bad of people when this dynamics are playing out. And whilst we all like to think that, you know, everyone would do the right thing and be looking out for each other, unfortunately the reality is not the case all the time.
That's right. And I guess that's one of the very important factors of having a independent person, or as far as you can be, engaged to say, I am acting in your best interest and I feel that in your best interest. No, it's not good to gift your son that house.
Yeah.
Because for these particular reasons, if even in the circumstances we've encountered before, the son is pushing for that, we will advise from a legal or otherwise perspective saying, no, that is not something that you should or could or can or would be doing in these circumstances for those particular reasons. It's unfortunate, but as you said, these sorts of things do happen. We just advise where we can and report where we can. There is a liaison officer, senior, I can't remember the word of what you call them at the moment, I've got a mental blank, but at Waratah, elder abuse advocate. One of the police officers that are there, they are aware of all the elder abuse that occurs now. So they do actually, like they have domestic violence liaison officers, they do actually have specialists within the elder abuse area as well, because financial abuse and stealing, regardless of the age, is not okay. So there are those areas which people are becoming aware of now. And I have heard of aged care assessment team officers that have been going to courts on behalf of clients as well. So I guess it is good to know that there are protections in place. They're not as stringent as what I would hope that they would be, but one of those things.
Yeah, well, it's well, as I said, stealing from anyone or taking advantage of anyone's unfortunate, but when their capacity is not necessarily that great, or you're leveraging their emotions or what have you, that's probably not good. In saying that, obviously, it's at that stage of life where, it can be very, when someone's looking at, potentially getting assistance to live at home or having to go out to care, it's obviously an emotionally difficult time for them, because, they've got the realization that, well, I can't do this by myself, and that can be a very difficult thing for most people. What are the skills and attributes that you've got to have at the coalface when giving this sort of advice and helping people through this process?
You've got to have that high level of empathy, but you also have to remain professional at all times, to have a level of detachment, to be able to allow a person to speak, especially when they are terminal illnesses and the like. It is quite ironic when you're watching someone through that. You have a family member where it is too emotive for them. All you have is a client that wishes to express how they're feeling. They are understanding that final stage. They want to be able to communicate, but the other party may not want to hear it. So they'll continually stop them from talking. So to be able to be a soft place where you can actually say, I want to listen to you, I want to hear what you have to say, I value your opinion, your goals, what are you actually after? And then to be able to take those into account and communicate them effectively so that all parties can actually understand what's trying to come across. And a lot of the time you're dealing with fear, you're dealing with grief, you're dealing with those overwhelming emotions, because it's a horrible situation for people that are emotionally invested to deal with.
So what is that nightmare scenario in regards to aged care advice? What are the things that you find really difficult to deal with?
I've seen most of it. The ones that ones that I personally find most hard to deal with is when you do have an at-risk or an elderly person that are very vulnerable, and you have a family member who is quite clearly taking advantage of them. You're in a situation where the individual has to be willing to pursue, if it is a legal matter, they have to be willing to pursue those legal matters to, if it's a case of pressing charges or otherwise. But the sad component sometimes can be that individual may be their carer who is living with them at their home. So you understand that they're actually in a situation where they're effectively trapped. They feel trapped. If they do report because you don't want to, it's your family member, inherently you love them, you don't want to be in a situation where you are then required to go into care, and you may not be ready for that because you believe that's all that's there. You're also of the opinion you don't want to hurt your family member, even though they may be hurting you in particular ways as well. So that sort of stuff is the part which I find really hard to reconcile. It doesn't sit well with me, but all we can do is provide advice. The other one that resonates quite hard, I've heard and helped quite a few clients in this situation, is where they've been in situations, unfortunately, they are rare, in a facility where there has been abuse that has occurred, and we are safely removing them from that facility and transferring them to a facility where most of the time you do have a good outcome because their health, their well-being substantially improves in such a short period of time. So those ones are quite distressing. They are more rare. Majority of the facilities and the individuals that work in facilities are wonderful people. They are trying their best, or they wouldn't be in that particular field. It is the few bad apples. It should not be across the board that there is that opinion, but as we know, bad news, that's the one that's reported mostly in the market. You don't hear enough of all the good news stories of all those wonderful facilities and home care providers.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And then, I mean, you know, it's whether it's people's money, whether it's looking after the elderly, that, you know, if it's a touchy topic, you only need a couple of bad stories, and that makes great media, and it makes great political grandstanding, and you know, it gives people a big platform to go and make a heap of noise and look like they're you know, doing stuff. Yeah, so it's obviously something that no one likes to see. But I'm hoping that you know, going forward, the little problems that they are having, you know, that obviously they'll be improving the same as we all improve, whether it's financial services. We have royal commissions, we fix things up, we move forward. So hopefully that's the same sort of thing.